Welcome to another episode of the Sales Leadership Lab. If you are a Chief Revenue Officer, a CEO, or anyone in sales navigating through the complexity of what sales is, then you are at the right place. We have raw conversation, discuss insights, and bring in some amazing guests to really talk about what makes the revenue needle move. Today, I have a very impressive guest with me from our neighbor country, New Zealand, and that's John Craner. And St. John has, I have to read this out because I've really summarized his amazing, brilliant career and experience into a few words, but I have to make justice to this. So, St. John Craner is an Essex farmer's son who started his career at McCann Erickson Advertising in London, moved to the other side of the world, and now runs New Zealand's most specialized rural sales and marketing training business from Hawke's Bay. He is the author of 2 books, How to Succeed in Rural Sales and 365 Days to Rural Sales Mastery. He also hosts his podcast, The Rural Sales Show, and has trained sales teams of likes like Bayer, Westpac, Vodafone, KPMG, Chorus, and D-Level across New Zealand, Australia, and the US. His whole thesis is that farmers are the most oversold buyers on earth, which makes rural the perfect laboratory for how not to sell. Welcome, St. John. How are you today?
I'm very good, Dibdi. Nice to be here.
Likewise, we're quite excited. What really caught my interest being in Australia is your focus on rural selling. And to be really honest, I haven't met anyone who specializes in rural selling. So I'm quite keen on actually asking you my very first question. Your background initially started in marketing. What made you move to sales?
It's really funny. I think everyone these days thinks they're a marketer, right? And at the end of the day, sales is the bottom line. And I was a business development director as well as a strategic planner for Young and Rubicon and McCann Erickson. Before I headed over to here to meet my wife in New Zealand, I spent some time in Australia. And I was sort of in this sort of funk where I was sort of getting more disillusioned with marketing and attribution and all those things. But long story short, someone said you're actually really good at sales. You're good at sales. I'm like, oh, sales, yucky, sleazy, horrible. Car salesman. No, that's not sexy. I'm not doing that. And then I realized actually that when I looked around, salespeople make a lot of money, and they certainly make more than marketers. So I'm going to say something controversial right from the start. I've kind of changed the game because I flipped from marketing to sales. They are integrated, but I do think marketing should be a sales support mechanism. So I think marketing should work for sales because ultimately we're judged by our sales and income because sales is the single biggest income producing activity of any business. Now that's not just diminishing marketing's role and their value. Marketing's role is to deliver semi-qualified, and we can talk about MQO and SQL and all that kind of stuff. But I think a marketing team should be developing or delivering semi-qualified leads, and then a sales team should be closing them. But again, there's some very good marketers out here, I'm sure, listening to it. If you're really good at marketing, you can make sales superfluous. And then I just got really interested in psychology because I think psychology is a very important subject. I've been fascinated by human behavior since I was a little lad, and I've just sort of spent my life learning about it, and I'm nowhere the finished article now, but how people buy, why they buy. And I think marketing and sales both need to understand psychology. I think you've got to be a student of psychology for both domains.
I absolutely agree with you. And this is something which I have learned through my experience, especially when you are dealing with people. And as salespeople, you're dealing with variety of mindsets. I strongly believe that there has to be a lesson on psychology, on how to read others and influence others, right? I mean, we have all the best of the books of Dale Carnegie and stuff, but you really touched upon on understanding. And I feel personally, people from the marketing area are really good at that. And somehow my guess is that has helped you be really good at sales.
I think when it comes to sales, like understanding psychology is so important because whether in marketing or selling, it's all about how we help people buy. And I think you just need to get really curious about human behavior and how humans make decisions. And I think, yeah, you can get a grounding in your discipline and domains and marketing. I mean, we did consumer psychology at university. That was my favorite part of my degree. And I suppose that's really where it all came from. But yeah, sales is ultimately where the rubber hits the road.
Wonderful. So, tell me a little more about the rural selling, because as I mentioned to you, I haven't met anyone. Typically, people are in the metros and cities. What made you choose rural selling?
Well, I'm a farmer's son by my background that you kindly said in the intro.
Yeah.
So my dad was a farmer, lived on farm right up until I left for uni, surrounding agricultural area. I suppose I went full circle. I've done corporate, I've done ad agency, and I came back to farming because when you get to my age, you actually want to work with really good people. And I'm not saying city people aren't good people, but I've always been surrounded by country folk and farming. So you kind of gravitate to your own tribe again. So I kind of went full circle. And my late father was sort of quite interested. He said, for God's sake, Cindy, do not be a farmer. Work with farmers, but don't be a farmer because there's no money in farming. And so kind of did that. And I think you need to live in the market to own the market, live in the market to know the market. I live in a very agricultural part of New Zealand. New Zealand's a very agrarian economy. We've got a lot of dairy farmers, sheep and beef, vet, or same with Australia, which I'm there every sort of 5 or 6 weeks at the moment, it seems. And so, agriculture is a backbone of both our economies. And, there's we train Canada, we train Ireland, we train UK, we train US. But farming to me is a very, very important role. And sometimes it's an industry that isn't very sexy, but ultimately we only need to be reminded about COVID or straight hormones. As soon as we have food security issues, it's a big problem. So we need to love our farmers more and look after them because they're very, very important, just because food security is a really big thing.
Brilliant. So I've heard you say that farmers are most oversold buyers because farmers are most oversold buyers on earth, which makes rural the perfect place to learn how not to sell.
Yeah. So
Um,
you used the word laboratory, didn't you, in your intro? So when it comes to farmers, everyone thinks farmers have got lots of money, and the problem is they're usually asset rich, cash poor, because they have good seasons and bad seasons. They have good yield, bad yield, climate, frost, rain, floods, bushfires, all these things they can't control. So everyone, when you're selling to a farmer, you're selling pretty big stuff. You could be selling hundreds of thousands of dollars of fertilizer or seed or agronomy or agri-tech or machinery even. Some of this machinery is sort of 1 mil north, and they're running assets that could be anything from $5 to $10 million up. And I'm going to show my bias here. I love going to cities, but sometimes in the sales game, it's all a numbers game. You can't play that game in rural because there's not enough farmers, because there are less farms because they're getting bought up, right? Ma and pa farms all over the world are becoming more corporatized and bigger. And so you can't play this numbers game, this transaction game, this hardcore closing game with farmers, because one, if you usually send to farmers, you usually have come from a farm yourself, someone knows your parents, and you live in a community where you're bumping into the rugby club or the bowls club or the RSA club, wherever you hang out. So it provides sort of quite a lot of self-regulation in that sense. So what I'm saying is the way that we've been trained in sales traditionally in the city, it won't work in the country because it's such a much closer and closed community. So that is why farmers are oversold to, because they buy a lot of stuff because they've got a very complicated biological system that they're running, whether it's livestock or crop or broadacre. So that's why they're sold to a lot. But farmers hate being sold to. And the problem is a lot of people who don't understand the sector is that you should never, ever sell to a farmer. You should always support them to help them make good decisions. You should be the decision support tool for your farmer. And when you think about selling is actually not about selling. The more you try to sell, the less you will sell. Selling is actually about buying. But what we talked about earlier, Dipti, which is actually buying is about deciding. A buying action is a decision. It's a decision to buy. And when they decide to buy, then you make sales. So we have to work the other way around. So it's really important people understand the psychology of keeping your buyers safe and not selling and being non-assumptive the way you sell. And unfortunately, a lot of people do it really, really wrong, which we're very lucky. It keeps us very busy.
Brilliant. I loved how you've really thought about the understanding of what exactly goes in a farmer's life. Like, you study your customer, you understand their likings, you understand what they eat, where they go, what they consume, and then build around that. So let's say, taking this to another question, which is quite related, is somebody who is in sales, who is probably from the metros, and they need to focus on selling to farmers. What
Mm.
are some of the things you would advise them, like the do's and the don'ts?
The first thing you got to sell slow to sell fast. It's something I teach my students. You got to sell slow to sell fast. Farmers don't make decisions quickly. The reason they don't make decisions quickly is those decisions are life-defining decisions for the future of their farms. So if they try to plant a new crop or new corn, wheat, canola, cotton, whatever they're into, and that doesn't strike and that doesn't yield, they can not only lose that year, they can lose the farm. And the shame that comes with that, the stakes are very high. It's a very high stakes sales. So if you're selling in the city, you can sell SaaS or
Mm,
pharmaceutical to, but that person might only be in that role for 18 months. That farm might have been there for 18 years, let alone 80, or it could be multiple generational. So when they make a decision, there's so much higher risk and it's so more personal, because when they come out each and every day, because they usually live on the same place, they usually live on the farm, they get to see that decision, that crop, that machinery, that livestock, those genetics. And if they've made a bad decision, they're reminded of that of every single day. If you're a CMO,
mm,
CTO, whatever you're selling to in the city, they just buzz off after 18 months and you can just go get
mhm,
another one and then just wait your time. Farming, it's much, much slower. They're going to be there for a long time. And if you butcher it and you get it wrong, you're usually going to be sent packing down the driveway because you haven't understood them, because you sold too
mm,
fast. You served your own needs, not them. You didn't make them feel safe. And they're going to say you're going to have a bad reputation around town because they're going to talk to you with their mates at the pub and go, "Oh, that's St. John dickhead. Don't go no him. He just sells you. He's only into it for himself." So word gets around really quickly. So that's what we're talking about, the sort of close knit, self regulated community. So it's much higher stakes selling to farmers because there's so few of them, and they usually stay around for a long time.
brilliant. You have called BS on always be closing. For an audience that grew up on the gospel, what actually replaces it, and what is the old version now a liability rather than a skill? So, when a leader's whole team is still wired for closing,
Yeah.
where do you think they need to make a start?
So basically, everyone rewards the thing they can see,
Hmm.
which is the close. But the thing is, like a farming system, it has inputs and outputs. All right. So you got to put things to get things out. So there's a lot of things that need to happen to get that output or the outcome, which is the sale that we see above the waterline. And so what
Yeah.
it is closing problems are opening problems. So what happens is if you're just only focused on the close, you close off your buyer. Doesn't matter who you're selling to. Humans don't like being told what to do. They
Hmm.
don't like being told what to do. You think about COVID, we said, don't panic buy. What do we all go and do? We panic buy. When the fuel crisis hit, what do we say? Do not go to the garage and fill up your cars and all your, don't do
Hmm.
that. They were queues for Africa to the gas stations. So this is called reactance theory. So the psychologists call this reactant, where we react by being told what to do. So what you do is you don't see your prospect, your customer, as a form of prey or a target with a dollar sign floating above their head and you counting your commission. They're a human being who've got a lot of decisions to make, a lot of different priorities running around, and probably don't feel safe with salespeople because no one likes feeling safe. No one feels safe with salespeople because there's so many bad ones out there. And so you have to differentiate yourself and go, right, how do I communicate in a way and signal that I'm serving your needs, not mine? And then that means they stay open, because the exercise I do with my students is, if I could see
Hmm.
your door, Dipti, where you are in your studio here, I'm assuming it's closed because you and I are
Hmm.
concentrating. My door is closed here in the office. And I ask you to close that door. You go, Sinjan, I can't close that door. It's already closed. Well, how can you close something that's already closed off? The way we sell traditionally and the way we're training closes people off. It shuts them down. So the way you close something is by keeping it open, and the way you keep something open is keeping it safe. So this is why I say closing problems, open problems. If I hear always be closing or close, 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 or my guys can't close, it is a cry for help that they haven't been properly trained in psychology.
I love it. Cry for help. Absolutely. And I think there are so many out there who are crying for help because they haven't received the right training or coaching, or, I feel personally that upskilling is such a huge part. that a lot of teams are missing. Like from my personal journey, I have learned a lot through good coaches or mentors or having some good sales training. But before that, I have failed so much. So, in your experience and your personal experience, what has helped you learn? Like, what have been your sources of learning and upskilling?
I think the first thing you need to do is you need to immerse yourself in your market and understand who your ideal customer is. So I think it was Robert Collier that said you've got to connect with the conversation happening in your customer's head. So in marketing, we call it ICP or an avatar, ideal customer profile. You've got to know the market to sell to the market, and you need to live in the market to know the market as well. So immerse yourself in the market, understand and niche down and specialize, right?
Yeah.
Understand who you are serving and what their specific pains and problems are. So for me, how I've learned is a lot of being self-taught, a lot about immersing myself, spending time carving on dairy farms, milking cows, coming from a farm myself, driving tractors, talking to farmers, drinking with farmers, and just immersing myself and understanding what they're about. Ultimately, the universal truth is whoever you're selling to, so everyone goes, oh, you're talking about rural farming, that's not relevant for me, I'm in the city. It doesn't matter. When you think about human psychology, like I said before, no one likes to be sold to because that makes them feel unsafe. Your job is
Mm.
never to sell anything to anyone. Your job is to help them make good, accurate, and informed decisions. And it's what we
Mm.
call a buyer's assistant. Now, I teach my
Mm.
students this concept of buyer's assistant because if you're a sales rep and they perceive you as salesy, they'll treat you as such. So you sell the same, you get treated the same. If you sell like a commodity, get treated like a commodity. This is why your close rate, your conversion rate, your win rate is appalling because you're
Mm.
so focused on closing rather than opening. Now, when you open up a buyer, they're going to tell you a lot more. And when they tell you a lot more, you're going to learn a lot more. And eventually, if you learn more, you're going to earn more because they're going to tell you things that they won't tell the opposition. So
Mm.
it's making people feel safe and comfortable and at ease to talk to you about what is the problem they're trying to solve? What would success look like? Imagine we're sitting down 12 months from today. What would a good result look like? Tell me why you're potentially even looking at it like this. What's the thing? What does this thing need to do for you to make it a good result? See, the questions I'm asking are not going click and whir, show up, throw up, feature creature. I'm much more interested in you than I am in my product or service I sell.
Brilliant. So I'm taking away a few learnings. One is the foremost, which is the listening skills, which many of
Nice.
us miss. Second is the actual relationship element here, where you are actually leading in, looking at how do we solve problems, but actually helping them make better decisions. So some
Yeah.
really great insights. Thanks for this. My next question to you is take the 22-year-old you, fresh into McCann Erickson in London, suit on, big city ambitions. What would be flat out refuse to believe about where you have ended up and what you now think actually matters in sales?
Oof, it's a good one. I can remember traveling and commuting in from the farm to
Yeah.
London for my job. And my dad picked me up from the station one day because I couldn't afford the car parking. He goes, I don't think you're suited for the city. And he looked at me trudging out of the train station. And obviously, he's a farmer. And so I went and played, not semi-serious professional rugby out in Cotswolds, which is in the southwest
Right.
of England. And so I got back into rural, and then I worked for rural marketing agencies and all those sort of things. But I think the 22-year-old St. John in the suit was too concerned about what other people thought, and so I think what I was still very young, very immature, and I just finished uni. I went to Bournemouth University, got these amazing advertising agency lectures that taught me about psychology and consumer behavior and really lit me up that fascination with the psychology. But I was at 22. It's funny, I've never been asked this question before because it takes me back. I was trying to please everyone else, but not pleasing myself, and
Mm.
trying to be someone who I wasn't, and I wasn't being true to myself and my roots. So I thought that marketing and city and suits and all that stuff was very glamorous. Well, no, it's not. But I think that comes with age, right?
Yeah,
So
agree.
the shiny stuff. So today, if I had advice to that 20-year-old, I would just say, forget what other people think and just focus on yourself. And don't worry about what other people think or how you position yourself or posture. But I was 22-year-old. We're all young. We're all naive. I didn't really know anything at that stage.
I think coming to that age, I think we all have some or the other moment or the element where we say, oh, just live your life and, do what you feel like. But as being youngsters, you are like, oh, no, I'm doing something different. I'm not following the pattern that my friends are doing. I will be the odd one left out. That's the fear. So yeah, great lesson.
I tell you something else that might be useful for the
Ooh.
listeners. One of the biggest lessons I've learned, and this has taken a long time, I'm a very slow learner, is when I was younger, I always thought value came from external things. So, cars and holidays and nice stuff and nice restaurants or a bottle of wine or whatever it is. And it took me a really long time to work out that value actually comes from the inside. So the thing is, you're constantly chasing external validation. The first person you need to focus on is validating yourself. When we talked about psychology, the first bit of psychology you need to master is the one that you have with yourself, your own psychology, your own psyche. I think it's Aristotle or Plato says the highest form of intelligence is knowing yourself, to know thyself. So I would say to any younger listeners, you should take your time to understand who you are and what you're about. And if you can learn that sooner than me, you'll be a much bigger success than I am, which wouldn't be hard, because you know yourself and you know your own value, which leads to when it comes to sales and you get rejected, you have such a sensitivity to rejection because you rejected yourself, because you didn't do the work, the necessary inner work. So I know this is a bit deep and meaningful, but it's something I've learned a long way, is that if you're constantly chasing the dopamine hit of external things, it's a very clear signal and sign that you don't have enough internal worth. Because what it is, your self-worth is shaken by rejection, and rejection is a very big thing. I still actively sell. I still get a lot of no's, not as many as I used to, but I still get no's. But if you have high self-worth and you've done everything and you value yourself by not breaking the promises you make to yourself, you don't break that psychological contract. You stay tall and stoic in winds of change, and you have resilience against rejections and no's and knockbacks and ghosting, which all comes part and parcel of sales. You're unshakable because you built belief about yourself. You don't rely on others to say, oh, you're really good. You know you're good because you've done the work. So I just want to share that with listeners, because that was a real
That's
breakthrough moment
brilliant.
for me.
That is deep. That is so spot on, and that's so relatable. And this, that reminds me of something I've learned from Zig Ziglar's, when he's talking about sales, that in your sales process, you have to make the customers feel good. But most importantly, you have to feel good about yourself. And that has stayed with me for years, because when
Yeah.
I am having customer conversations or going through a sales journey, very conscious of what experience I'm delivering. Now, I want to again go back and go a little deeper on the question, what is it that you're doing where you have focused on improving your self-worth? What helps you to uplift your own sales worth?
Keeping promises that I make to myself. So today, I turn up to the gym. I'm a middle-aged man. I'm 52. And I turn up and there's no one there for the group HIT class, the training. So I just do the training myself. So I plug my phone in and I do the workout for an hour on my own. Now that was hard because I work better in a team environment where peers, someone else is doing pull-ups and burpees and kettlebells and
Yeah.
whatever else we do. I had to do that all on my own. That was really hard today. That was really, really hard because I'm not used to doing it. So you have to be self-motivated. You have to kick your own ass. Psychologists call this emotional contagion. So what Zig Ziglar is talking about, in order to make your customers feel good, you need to feel good. The way you make yourselves feel good, by believing yourself and having rock solid belief, confidence, conviction about yourself, is by doing difficult things. So today, very timely, I could have turned up to the gym across the way here where I live and go, oh, there's no one here, there's no instructor, I'm not gonna do a workout today, and then just walked out the gym doors. Instead, I just went, right, drop my bag in, get my towel, fill up my water bottle, plug in my phone, put some music on and start grabbing some weights and doing some workouts. And I did that for an hour today. Now, the thing is, if I'd then gone, oh, nah, that's okay. No, Jess isn't here. I'll take a rain check. I'll just take out today. Then what I've done is I've removed a brick of belief in myself. And what I've done is I haven't then proven myself to myself, because the easier option would have means just walk out and go, don't worry, I can catch up on some work. I'll go and get a sandwich or something else. But instead, I held myself to a high standard, which meant I kept my psychological contract intact. which means I built self-worth and I'm building bricks of belief. And this is really important for you to understand. It's very easy to succeed in life. You just have to be willing to do and be disciplined and committed enough to consistently do the things that you sometimes don't like doing. I don't like writing my books. They are hard. They're really, really hard to write for me. Sometimes I don't like admin. Sometimes I don't like technology. Sometimes I don't feel like I want to go and do a workout, but I do them because they're necessary for me to build belief about myself. And that's the thing. That's your immunity when you get rejections and that everyone knows knockbacks is, well, I know I've done the work and I know what I'm about and I know myself. So I don't need your external validation to say yes to me because I've already said yes to myself.
Oh, that's brilliant because, as we say, it's the excuses you tell yourself. So
We
your
tell ourselves
best.
stories and they are self-limiting behaviors.
Tot-
I don't read books. Well, okay, so you're conditioning your brain already to say that. Instead, see, like I hate running. Okay, so I'm quite a heavy dude. And I hate running. I prefer swimming because I can float there. I don't float when I run. I'm very ugly at running. And what it is I have to say to myself, what we call cognitive reappraisal. So another psychological term. You
Yeah.
have to cognitively reappraise this. You don't say, I have to run or I've got to run. I get to run. See the difference? I
Oh,
don't, I
wow.
haven't, I have to go for a run is I get to run. There'll be a time where I can't run. Hopefully that's a few years away, but I get to run. So you reappraise it and you go, I really I don't want to do this workout today. Well, you get to do the workout today. Lots of people can't. They're physically not able to, or they're sick, or they're ill, or something terrible's happened. Or I get to read. There's a lot of people who can't read, or people don't have those resources. I mean, we're talking about gratitude here as well.
Mm.
But you have to cognitively reappraise it and go, actually, I am someone who reads. Now, James Clear, Atomic Habits, everyone knows who this person is. He has a really good quote. He says, every action you take is a vote for your future self. So what you're doing is you've got to be kind to your future self by doing the things today to make tomorrow better. So I think, your current self is delivering to future self. So again, he says, if you miss something once, that's okay. Miss it twice, it's a habit. I won't miss it twice. In fact, I won't miss it once because I'm worried it then becomes a habit and I don't go. So we could talk about that for hours, but I think if the listeners understand that, is hold yourself to a high standard, then you build self-worth, and then you have the confidence conviction you need to convey to buyers. And buyers pick up on that. They don't just buy into you, they buy into your confident conviction you have about not just your product service, but most importantly about you, which is back to your Zig Ziglar quote. In order to make them feel good, you've got to feel good. You do things that make you feel good about yourself. The best way to do that is do difficult things. Because a lot of people in this world today, it's so shiny, it's so distracted, it's so noisy. Taking the easy route, it's so easy. Don't do the difficult things, your life's easy. Do easy things, your life's difficult.
Oh, perfect, perfect. I know you talk a lot about sports and you have analogies of sports. And I think in a salesperson's life, sports plays an important role because we are either seeing highs, we are seeing lows, and they're steep in both ways. And you got to maintain consistency and cadence. Are there any lessons that you teach in your sales training to your students?
If you had a billboard and you just write a thing on it, I would write 2 words: be consistent.
Mm.
So I think the thing is, if you practice how you play how you practice. You have to do the reps and you have to be consistent. Everyone's looking for the silver bullet, the panacea, the quick hack, the overnight success takes 10 years. Like I've been doing this for 20, formally for 13. This has taken me a really long time to get, and we're only just getting started. But people don't stick with things enough and they get distracted or they get knocked off course or something happens and they get busy. And I would say sports is a commitment, a discipline.
Mm.
If everything was easy, Derek Shivers, this author, he says, if everything was easy, everyone would have a six pack and they'd be a millionaire. Now, the funny thing is, you can't really buy your body. You have to train your body. So, that is
Mm.
a sign of discipline. But I try and keep myself in good shape as a middle-aged guy because I need energy. And energy is everything, right? So, and you need a lot of energy in sales because you get a lot of no's and knockbacks. So my advice when it comes to sports is be professional, be committed, be disciplined, be consistent. And the top sports players practice, they practice, they practice, they practice. It's all the work that you don't see them doing. So when they come onto court or they come onto the field or rugby, world, tennis, cricket, whatever your thing is, they've done all the work and then they will perform because it looks spectacular, but it was done with unspectacular practice to achieve spectacular achievement. They've done the
Absolutely.
reps.
Because the sports, the performance, it's say half an hour, an hour, but what it takes for them to perform at that peak is taking them days and
Years,
hours of
years.
uncompromising work.
Usain Bolt has a very famous quote. He says, people uh, get disappointed that they don't achieve excellence at time. It took me 7 years to run under 10 seconds, and they give up in 2 months. So it's really simple. You've got to put in the work, the mahi. You've just got to commit and stay the course. And if you do that, Alex Hormozy talks about, so you become unstoppable, undeniable, unavoidable. The only way you fail is when you quit. Now, there is times where you need to stop or you need to readjust your plan or change things in life, personal, professionally, aren't going right. But you should never quit on yourself. You should always, your number one customer is yourself. You should always be backing yourself. So you have to invest in yourself, and then you'll be amazed where you can get, because people, it's that emotional contagion. People feel that energy from you and go, hey, this is someone who really knows themselves, looks after themselves, invests in themselves, and they're the kind of people I want to be around.
That's a lot of inspiration for all our listeners. So anyone who's listening is going to walk out feeling so super energized and motivated. Great thoughts there, Sinjan. So let's talk about the books you've written. What made you come up with not one, but two books, and what are they about?
Yeah, well, I've actually written a third book that's just about to come out, which is
Oh,
called The
beautiful.
Inner Game of Rural Sales, which is
Yeah.
based on the mental game and the mindset game. But the book before that was called 365 Days to Master Rural Sales. And the first section is about knowing yourself, and then knowing sales is section 2, and then knowing sales management and leadership is number 3. Ryan Halliday's book, The Daily Stoic. So it has a daily entry for each of those sections. There's a few reasons. I've got 3 children who I love to death, and when I go, I'm leaving them a legacy. I write my books with the responsibility that I leave them to my children and no one else reads them. And so if someone else learns outside, that's great. But if I can help one person not suffer and struggle in rural sales, and a lot of the principles apply to any sector or any vertical, it's the same. Everyone says, oh, I sell pharmaceutical and I sell SaaS and I sell retail and industrial commercial. It doesn't matter. All the psychology is roughly the same. So when I write those books, even though they're obviously for a rural audience, rural sales managers or owners or rural reps, the key thing is understanding yourself, because you're the most important part of the sales process. So we always start with a person. And I write them because no one should suffer or struggle, because it's unnecessary, because the resources are out there. There's plenty of books behind you, behind me. There are plenty of people that have poured their wisdom into a book. You can learn so much from a book for the cost of lunch, and they can teach you their life's learnings. And I'm trying to find the Naval Ravikant quote about learning, and it's like the means of learning are abundant. We've got AI, we've got internet. But he says the desire to learn is scarce. So the means of learning are abundant. The desire to learn is scarce. So we're surrounded by all this information, infinite scroll, AI, internet, yet people still aren't learning. So you've got to become a lifelong learner. You have to be a lifelong learner. Just because you left school or college, don't rely on your employers to invest in your own education. You've got to back yourself. In fact, my best students are the people that pay for their own training.
They're the ones who have the hunger and the drive and genuinely believe in
They've
uplifting
truly got
themselves.
skin in the game. But everyone wants a handout. It's like, well, why don't you help
Shortcuts.
yourself? And then that knowledge, it travels with you for the rest of your life. That is now within you. And so I think it's Benjamin Franklin, now when a man empties his purse into his head, no man can take it away. An investment in knowledge always pays the best interest. They can take away your car, the laptop, the phone. Can't take away your knowledge. I mean, knowledge is learning from your own mistakes, and wisdom is learning from others. So just read the book, read the damn book, or listen to the book. I think that's the key thing, is just really commit to learning. But the first person you need to learn and master is yourself, and then you build from there.
Brilliant. I've had the fortune of really meeting some amazing people who've given me guidance on some of the books that has helped them. There is so much to learn. And in fact, today we are surrounded with YouTube universities. We've surrounded with
Yeah.
LinkedIn Learning. There is inundated resources available. What we are missing is the attitude. So spot on. Now, talking about AI, I have a question for you. And everyone is racing to bolt on to AI and having AI in their sales engine. I've heard you're openly skeptical. Is that true about AI?
I'm healthily skeptical. I mean, I have my own AI platform myself because Canadian clients, Ireland, Northern Hemisphere, I'm asleep and I need my sleep. So they can't talk to me, but my AI tool will talk to them. We call it Field Coach, Field Coach IO, but we'll put it in the show notes and people can have a play with it. But
Sure.
AI is not a crutch.
Mm.
You are the product. Sometimes you're the differentiator, and sales has always been about human beings. Now, unless someone wants to talk to a blue orb, humans will always want to connect with humans, and community and connection and empathy and understandings and emotional contagion and emotional intelligence and all that, and EQ and all the things we talk about. That is something that AI won't be able to replicate. You know, that sense of human connection and community. But it can support all the other stuff that doesn't involve that stuff. So it can do all the heavy lifting, the automation, all that kind of stuff. So I think there's two things going on. There's this automation, which allows us to have humanation, if there's such a word. So basically there's a humanization and an automation, and it's kind of like a 1 + 1 = 5. So you've got to be using AI to accentuate or magnify your humanness, your connection, but don't lose who you are to AI. Like AI is your sparring partner, it's your coach. It spots out your blind spots. You can set it up to challenge. My AI always challenges me. It's not sycophantic. It's like, oh yeah, that's great. I'm saying, what am I missing here? What's my thinking like? And before it even gives me an answer, it's questioning me, and I've trained it to do that. So that's how I use it. I'm running the show, but I use it as a decision support tool to test my thinking. So don't let AI do all your thinking for you, or you'll lose your ability to think. So The Economist just came out with, they did some brain scans, and I don't remember the study, but basically, and I always get this word wrong, but we are literally having muscle atrophy in our brains because we're abdicating all our thinking to AI machines. So what's happening is we're not thinking for ourselves. You still need to think for yourselves. You still need to have a point of view, but use AI to challenge that. So AI is the support act. It's not the main act. You're the main act. And you need to be you, and you need to have a point of view and a perspective or position, which some people might not agree on, but that's you. So don't try and be everyone else. Just be you and use AI to support that.
Brilliant. I totally agree with you. We still need the human touch, the human interference. We cannot have AI lead us, whereas we just use AI for help. Absolutely. It's spot on. Before we leave, how can people find you?
The best way is to connect with me on LinkedIn. I've got a resources page called Rural Sales Success, all one word, ruralsalessuccess.com. And if you are interested in what I talk about, even if it's rural or non-rural related, it's related to other industries. There's an email there, there's books, there's podcasts, so just help yourself to those resources.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for taking the time and coming onto our podcast. It's been such a pleasure to talk to you and, to pick your brains and hear all these amazing insights to learn your story. Thank you so much, Sinjin. Thank you for your time and for patiently listening to us. That's Sinjin, founder of Agrarian and Rural Sales Success, author of How to Succeed in Rural Sales and 365 Days to Rural Sales Mastery, and the host of the Rural Sales Show. So if today reminded you that basics still beat the gimmicks, go connect with Sinjin on LinkedIn and pick up the books. And if you've got value from this one, share it with the sales leader who needs to hear it. I'm Dip Dependent, and this has been the Sales Leadership Lab.